All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I normally say y'all, but I feel like I'm turning a new leaf considering today I'm finally starting with a new podcast platform. We're going to be trying something new in the next little while. I recently worked with a woman who said Riverside is the best platform to record podcasts and edit it because we are starting to create more clips. We're going to be doing more solos over the next few weeks. So I'm very excited for this. Give us a few weeks to iron out the kinks and the bumps because I'm sure there's going to be a few of them. However, my podcast producer is amazing, and hopefully this gives us a clearer photo for those who watch over on YouTube, gives us a few more clips, and hopefully even the sound and video quality is much better because we are going to be doing a lot more solos lately. I'm really going to be focusing in over the next few months and hopefully going forward on things that you guys have been asking me, and that is much more in depth, much more focused on you, the listener. We are going to be doing, like I said, more solos, less guests, because it is wild. It's like the weirdest thing ever. As someone who listens to podcasts, I can't believe, like, I don't realize this, but you have requested more of me and less guests, which is kind of wild because when you start a podcast, most people just assume and think that like the guests are like the best part. And conceitedly, we're just like, what? You just really want to listen to us and you want our take? But I guess it's interesting. We go to a specific person's podcast because we want their take. And so I am going to be leaning in more on some solos. And I thought, why not start the new kind of track to solos? We are going to be having some guests, so don't think we're not going to be doing guests. But I'm going to be starting this track today. I kind of was trying to think, like, how do I kick off like more solos? And it's weird. One of my longtime clients, he always laughs at me because he's like, you say the same like 10 things over and over again. And I was like, I probably do. I probably have about 10 solid sayings that I say over and over and over and over again. And today I thought I have a list 2, 4, 6, 8. I have 8 things that I say to clients that I've been saying for years. I use them in my personal life. I use them in my coaching life. And I thought today I would tell you like the saying that I say, and then I would give you an example either personally or with my clients. I thought today that would be a kind of a good way to kick off these solo episodes. And hopefully my team can create amazing clips from every single one of these because we really want to be dialing in to better content for you on my social media, but specifically on this podcast because I really want you to leave each podcast like with a clear takeaway. I want you to say, that thing I can implement to my life, or that decision I can make. So hopefully you enjoy it. Obviously, the same process that I've always been saying. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any thoughts, when you're listening to this podcast, always feel free to send me a text message, 501-222-3362. Come find me on social media. I am most active on Instagram at @Christina. So let's dive into it. And if you're a longtime listener of this podcast, you've probably heard me say a few of these things over the years, over the last 7, 8 years that I've been doing this. But today I thought I would actually say what it is that I say all the time and then kind of give you an example behind it. So the very first one is something I even asked, I don't even know. Do you guys use ChatGPT? Like, if you do not use ChatGPT, I want you to like literally hit stop right now and go download the app ChatGPT because it really is one of the like most transformational things in our lives. Like, besides the internet, I think ChatGPT could become the most, or any type of AI, but most people use ChatGPT, could become the most impactful thing in our generation. And like, I truly do believe that because it is wild. Like, I think eventually it'll kill us for sure. For all those conspiracy theorists like myself, I'm not as deep as some of my clients and some of my friends, but I am definitely on the little bit of the conspiracy theorist type of wavelength for sure. But I do believe eventually it will come to bite us in the ass. But in the meantime, I think it's one of the greatest things ever. But I asked ChatGPT to go back through the 250 plus podcasts that I put out to come up with like the 5 things that I think I say the most, or like the 5 kind of slogans that I say the most. And funny enough, 4 of them I had written down, but the one I didn't have written down, which is so wild, I can't believe that I couldn't think of it when I was writing this list of things of the sayings today, was everything works out for me. That is literally one of my favorite quotes of all time that I use all the time that my clients like regurgitate back to me. Because over the years, after you work with me for such a long period of time, I will start saying things to you that I want you to truly believe. Like I kind of honestly trying to brainwash a few of my clients along the way because I know the reason why I do this, to be honest with you, is because of what was done to me probably like 15 years ago when I had one of my friends who's been on this podcast. He's a huge mentor to me. His name is Justin Pointer, and he used to do this to me without me knowing it for so many years. And once I realized what he was doing, I was like, oh my God, that may be one of the most life-changing things that you've ever done. And he always used to tell me I was strong and I was confident and I was powerful. And he used it in the context of a golf swing. But what he was really doing was changing my psyche, changing my mindset on the golf course. Like it was one of those things that he constantly used that phrase, oh, you're so strong, you're so strong. And it was like in the context of golf. And I started to believe it. You know, there were certain things that happened that I started to believe it. And so I think I do very similar things with a lot of my clients over the years. Like when I'll tell them certain things, like I'm immediately thinking about a client of mine who is unbelievably successful in running a business and has an amazing culture on her team and does such a great job as a CEO. And I think one of her weaknesses is the fact that I don't know if she believes it as deeply as she does. And so for the last few years that I've worked with her, I have constantly told her, kind of just like always throwing it in there, how amazing of a CEO she is, unbelievably successful, how she's done such a great job as a CEO. And I think for me, it's just knowing that I have a small amount of power with my clients to really kind of make them believe the things that perhaps they don't yet believe. And so for me, this phrase of everything works out for me, and a lot of these things that I'm going to say today, I think I have the undertone of just saying these things to my clients so many times that they come to believe them. And one of the things, like I said, the very first one is everything works out for me. And it is wild how so many of my clients will send me Voxer messages. So my full-time clients get 24/7 access to me and they can, talk about everything under the sun, personal, business, good things, bad things, comments, concerns, and really how having that 24/7 access, the reason why I do it, and I'm probably one of the only ones who do it, is because I truly want these people to have an unlimited amount of time with me to where they can really change things when they're happening in the moment. And I think, I work with such high achievers. I work with people who are dealing with overwhelm, who are dealing with companies and businesses and professions and personal and family and all the thing. And I want them to be able to have a space to immediately handle the thing that they're handling. But coming back to Voxer, coming back to this quote, is I have so many clients who will come and like process something with me. Perhaps it's in their business and their personal life. And they'll always regurgitate back, well, everything works out for me. And I think it's just because I have said it for such a long period of time. And when I've kind of told them, I'm almost like undertone brainwashing them to believe that everything is working out for them, whether it be, something that they believed was going to be a good thing or something that they didn't necessarily believe was going to be good, but ended up working out really well for them. So that is one of the things that I think that I do really well is help clients reprogram beliefs, patterns, and habits and stories. But I do it sometimes in a way in which that they don't really realize that I'm doing it. And this is definitely intentional because it has worked with me for so long over my life for sure. But everything works out for me. It is just wild when you truly do believe that and you start to believe it to your bones, how you can like literally take any and all situations and curate it to make it 100% that everything is working out for you. I've said it on this podcast before. I've done it in a ton of speaking engagements. But if I go to the airport, I truly believe to my bones that I'm always going to make my flight. Of course, I'm going to make my flight. I never miss my flight. My bags are always on time. Like my flight's always on time. My bags always arrive. But if they don't, I can always find a reason and a way to believe that it's happening for a purpose and a reason. So maybe I miss a flight. I make an amazing connection. Maybe I prevent myself from getting in an accident if I would have arrived on time. Maybe it gives me the time to actually relax and not be so rushed. Maybe it gives me time to, work on something that I wanted to work on. Maybe it gives me time to get my steps in at the airport, whatever. But I can always reframe everything that's happening most of the time. I don't want to say that I do it all the time, because I also have really bad days where, I also am very much like a lot of my clients, a high achiever, a high performer, a person who wants to be in control and have things go the way that they want them to go. But once I've basically been able to take my mindset and believe that everything is working out for me, it has dramatically changed the game for me. So I think that that's a first quote that I would highly recommend. And all of these quotes, there's 8 of them. I would highly recommend that you write them down, maybe put them in an app on your phone. You can use a Word document. You can use a notes app. You can text them to yourself. You can put them on a sticky note. Shit, you can tattoo them. I don't really give a shit. As long as they're working for you, I promise they work for me. So the second thing is I've said it on this podcast so many times, is there's always a way to yes. I think especially with my high achieving, high performing clients, their ability to find a way to yes is what makes them the best, what makes them high achieving, what makes them super successful. And when you believe that there's always a way to yes, it is wild how you can always find a way to yes. I think that a lot of people, not most of the people that I work with, but in general, a lot of people look at something as a dead end or, won't be possible. And I think a lot of my clients that come to me are people who are very high achievers, high performers, who want a standard of life that is above most anyone else. And the ability to always find a way to yes is one of the reasons why I believe that they are the caliber that they are. I also think that this is kind of a back of a hand type of thing as well, to where it can hurt you in a lot of regards. I think a lot of my clients who end up working with me obviously want to hit this high level of life, and they created or have this high standard of life, but perhaps they're coming to me for being able to do it a different way and reprogramming the way that they do it and being able to have a strategy to still remain very successful but enjoy it more. Or perhaps, learn how to reprogram certain things so you aren't always, on level 10 of stress. But always finding a way to yes is something that I think is one of the greatest things that you can do. I think we live in a society, unfortunately, where people either believe that it's not their responsibility, or they pawn things off onto other people, or they perhaps have that woe is me mentality. When you have the mentality that there is always a way to yes, it is wild how often you can find your next step. You may not be able to find step 30, but you can always find your first step if you do believe that there is always a way. One of my Bethany Frankel, she always says is no is a starting point to yes. I think that that's so good. And no is just, the beginning and how to get to yes. And when you have the mentality that there is always a way to yes, I mean, really, if you think about it, everything in life has been done before. Maybe if you're not like Elon Musk or something like that, but most everything that you want in life has been done by someone else. And so that is proof that it is possible to find a way to yes. And your ability to have the mindset that there is always a way to yes dramatically improves your success rate. And so a lot of my clients, we have a mentality when things when things don't seem to, be going very well. I always regurgitate to them and always, reframe that there is a way to yes. And let's find the way to yes in order to get the thing that you want. So that is one of my favorite quotes as well. There's always a way to yes. All right, another one that I've not actually talked about on this podcast, but I need to do a post on it or perhaps we'll take a clip of this, but it is so wild how many people do this, and definitely people who have perhaps a poor money mindset or a lack mentality. But honestly, even some of my clients, even just the other day, I used this quote, and that's what brought it up, was so many people step over $1 to pick up a dime. And I don't know where I got that, but it is wild how many people will step over $1 to pick up a dime. And I think that that definitely comes down to a money mindset issue. It comes down to, not being able to prioritize. I think that that's one of the things that I really help clients with over the years for sure is, really helping a client see the clear path of what they want and for them to stay on that path and not deviate off that path in order to get the thing that they actually want. And oftentimes people will deviate because they think that they're going to save a few dollars, but what they're really doing is deviating to save a few dollars, but really at the ultimate goal, you're stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. Just the other day I had a client who didn't want to pay for like some sort of, I don't know, monthly subscription. I think it was probably going to be like $50 or $100 a month. And it's just one of those things that it's like, you don't want to spend $100 a month for something that could ultimately make you thousands of dollars a month. People don't want to invest in coaching, or they don't want to invest in some sort of, CRM. They don't want to invest in, this is something that happens all the time too. And I was blown away. This actually happened the other day and I was totally floored. I was in a very well-established spa and they requested that you pay via Venmo because they don't want to pay the credit card transaction fees. And this is something that new business owners especially have such a hard time with. And I'm not going to tell you I love paying fucking credit card fees because I'll be honest with you, over the years, I paid literally probably close to $100,000. Like, I mean, I don't know what the actual math is, but maybe not close to 100,000, but it's been a lot. It's been tens of thousands of dollars that I paid on credit card fees. And I think to myself, people who don't want to have a credit card because they don't want to pay the 2 to 3% credit card fees, you're stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. Like, you are literally stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. If a person doesn't want to shop with you, or a person doesn't want to pay you, or you don't even have an ability to charge a person money except for, Venmo or PayPal or whatever, because you don't want to pay a fee, you are short-sighting yourself. There is a cost to doing business. Like, it is just the world that we live in. But you are so short-sighting yourself, because I'll be honest, at the spa the other day, when someone asked me to pay via Venmo instead of a credit card, I was really put off. And like, I don't know if I really want to go back there. And I know that might sound, ticky, and I probably will because I know the person who owns it and I want to support her. But part of me wants to be like, hey, this is bad business practice. You're trying to save 3%, but really, you could hurt yourself, because I guarantee you I'm not the only person who was totally put off by that small mind of a 3% fee. Yes, it's a fee, but it's also the cost of doing business. And I think so many people, over the years, how many people have said they don't want to invest in coaching. They want to learn something on their own, or they want to think about it. The very typical, I want to think about it. No, you've been thinking about it forever. Now it's just a matter of taking a different action. But to think about stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime, the amount of time that you have to do something yourself, or the amount of learning that goes into it, or the amount of mistakes that you need to make in order to save a dollar, when you could, or in order to save some money, when you could literally be doing the thing that actually saves you money. And maybe that was a bad analogy, but I just think that at the end of the day, so many people are so ticky about, this is a great story. This is when I probably first thought about this in my life, and way before I had the mindset and the mentality and the repertoire that I do now. But I remember when I was a kid, and I've said my parents are amazing humans, but they just came from a horrible money mindset. And my job was just to reprogram that for myself, because I didn't want to live that life. I still don't want to live that life. But I remember when I was a kid, I had just turned 16, and my mom had a coupon for a free poinsettia at Christmas. And the free poinsettia was probably a 45-minute drive. And when she asked me to drive 45 minutes to go pick up a fucking free, probably $5 back when I was 16, 30 years ago, free fucking $5 plant, my head fucking spun. It was like, does this make logical sense? Like, I knew at the time it didn't make logical sense. And to me, that is stepping over $1 to pick up a dime mentality. And every single time I see someone, doing that, I try to reflect to myself, where am I doing that in life? Because I never want to be the person who like worries about, spending $25 on a service that I might need that has a potential of making me $100. You have to do the ROI. You have to do the math. And I would just highly encourage you to think about your life. Where are you stepping over $1 to pick up a dime? And that is such a money mindset. And I will tell you, I have clients who literally bring in millions of dollars of revenue, and we still have this type of talks. Like, these are actual things that I have talked about with clients still to this day who are bringing in millions of dollars in revenue, and they're still worried about spending, $50 to $100 on a service. I get it. Rich people stay rich because they don't blow their money, but rich people also get richer by not stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. So I think that that's one of my favorite quotes too. Another quote that I have been talking about lately, I don't know when this podcast is actually going to come out, but right now, as we're recording this podcast today, the stock market is definitely wild. The economy is up and down. But one of my favorite quotes is Warren Buffett: when people are greedy, or when people are scared, be greedy. And when people are greedy, be scared. And I have remembered this quote forever. My husband and I really kind of lean into this quote. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, my husband and I were, what was everyone doing at the beginning of the pandemic? You're either going for a walk or sitting on the couch or just twiddling your thumbs, right? But I remember my husband and I were always thinking, my husband and I, like, most people know we go for a walk pretty much every single day. We spend the weekends together. We spend the evenings together. Like, my husband and I are really, really good friends. And what I probably don't talk about enough is that in our time together, especially on our walks, we're always pretty much talking business. He and I have, two very different professional lives, but we also have a few businesses together. We have some real estate property together. We definitely have a ton of investments together. We're always thinking about business. That's just what we enjoy. It's what we like to spend our time on. And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, he and I were just sitting around bullshitting, and people were scared. Everyone was scared at the beginning of the pandemic, which totally made a ton of sense. But, after a few weeks of being like, this is the most stupidest shit on the planet, and whether you thought COVID was stupid or not, for us, our mentality was, this is ridiculous. But we were sitting around and we're going, this is ridiculous. Everyone is scared for really what logically didn't seem like a reason besides propaganda. We are going, everyone's scared. The markets are plummeting. When people are scared, be greedy. And so he and I got a pen to paper and we started talking on one of our walks, one of our 5 or 6 hour walks, I'm sure, during the time. And we said, okay, what is recession proof? What is the one thing in this world that's never going to go away, even if COVID locks us in our houses forever? And we started jotting things down. And then we remembered, the crash of '08, of when the government bailed out certain companies. And we're like, okay, everyone's scared right now. Let's invest some money in the stock market. And we didn't invest every dollar because, just like everyone else, no one fucking knows when it's going up or down. But we're definitely people who risk. We're definitely not as risk adverse as some. And so we got a certain amount of money, whatever it is to you, whatever it was to us, we got a certain amount of money and we started writing down stocks that we thought were recession proof. We were like, okay, credit card companies. Everyone and their mother is going to be fucking putting shit on credit cards. So we started to buy credit cards. And then we were like, okay, what's going to happen? Everyone's locked in their houses, like internet stuff. So then we're like looking at Zoom, we're looking at all sorts of things. And then airlines. We knew that airlines would probably go down, but we also knew that people were never not going to fly again. Like, logically, we knew that people were never going to not fly again. So we're like, airline stocks. And Boeing was a big one too, because again, government, right? So we just started going through. And then what else did we think of? We thought of casinos, because we knew people love to fucking gamble, because we're gamblers in life. So we knew people love to gamble. And then we also knew people were always going to fucking drink alcohol. That should have been our first one. So we bought alcohol stocks. We bought like Anheuser-Busch. We bought InBev. We bought all those things. So at the beginning of beginning of pandemic, like, I don't know, probably June or July or something, we really said, okay, people are scared. Let's be greedy. And we ended up putting up a certain amount of money into the stock market. And sure enough, we fucking crushed it. And so did a lot of people. I'm not saying that, it was only us, because it sure as shit wasn't. But it was that quote from Warren Buffett: when people are greedy, be scared. And when people are scared, be greedy. And I think right now is another time where people are scared. So I'm just throwing it out there. You can probably guess where my mentality is. So I think that that's another good quote. Another quote that I got from this podcast, from one of the very first podcasts I ever recorded with one of my good buddies, Jamie Johnson, country music singer and 10-time Grammy nominee, Jamie Johnson. He was in Nashville. He had just got out of the Marines. He was in Nashville. He was working construction. He was writing songs. And his career really wasn't taking off. It wasn't for about, I believe he said, about 5 years into Nashville that he got his big break. But one thing that he said that I think is one of the greatest quotes is, when quitting isn't an option, everything else is. And I know that there's certain times where quitting may be the best option, but most of the time, most people quit too early. Most people give up too fast. I've said it on this podcast before, and I believe it to be true. I never want to be most people. And when most people quit, I never want to be one of those people. So Jamie Johnson's quote: when quitting isn't an option, everything else is. And when you have that mentality, and many of my clients, I've asked a lot. I want to say a very big percentage of my clients, because they are coming to me because they are successful. They are coming to me because they're overwhelmed. They are coming to me because they want something to be different. There has been times that almost every one of my clients, I've said to them, I was like, okay, well then maybe we should quit. And my best clients, you know what they always say? Are you kidding? I'm never quitting. You can say that you want to quit. I say I want to quit quite often, but I'm never quitting, because when quitting isn't an option, everything else is. And that's one of my favorite quotes, and I hope you write it down too. And I hope you remember that the most successful people in this world will always find a way to yes, and quitting isn't an option, everything else is. So I love that one. I think it's really good to kind of keep in mind and remember that there is a way to yes, and that when quitting isn't an option, you can always find another option. Another one that I have gone back and forth with many, many clients over the years is, if it wasn't hard, everyone else would be doing it. Or if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I think sometimes, we do have to do hard things. I think sometimes we do have to do the thing that's hard. We have to pull the all-nighters. We have to work tirelessly. We have to say no to fun things. We have to, put our careers ahead of a lot of things. Working with me doesn't mean that everything is going to be sunshine and roses, but what it is going to mean is you're going to figure out how to delegate, delete, delay. You're going to figure out how to choose joy. You're going to figure out how to get clarity. You're going to figure out what systems you need. You're going to figure out what mindset processes are actually hurting you, which ones are helping you. You're going to figure out how to reprogram certain things in order to get a different result. You're going to figure out what other actions you have to take. I have a client right now who, just not only on top of me, but of our work together, she's invested another $5,000 a month in order to implement a system called Traction. If you've never heard about Traction, if your company is doing at least $1 million in business, you can probably start before that. But if you're doing at least 7 figures of revenue, you should 100% be looking into Traction. Over the years, I've probably worked with half a dozen companies and CEOs and bosses and entrepreneurs that have implemented implemented a Traction. It's called EOS, Entrepreneur Organization System. It's basically putting in systems and processes and, hierarchies, and just really being able to find a formula and find a system that works for your company, because as you grow, you can't do everything. And, that's hard. Investing in one more thing is hard, and putting in systems and processes and hierarchies and, who reports to who and HR all of the things, it's hard. And sometimes I do have to remind my clients that, you know what? If it was easy, everyone would do it. But if it was easy, everyone would have the life that you have. And I think sometimes I have to remember that, having a lifestyle that is not average means you're going to have to do things that are not average. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. Like working hard and, going the extra mile and putting in the hours, putting in the reps. Yeah, it just typically means that you're going to have a life that most people will never fucking get. Most people will never do the things that you're doing in order to have the life that you have. And I'm not telling you it's going to be cakewalk all the time. It can become easier. You can have shifts that make it so much easier. You can learn how to put in systems and processes and mindset shifts in order to make it easier. But overall, it's fucking hard to have a life that most people will never have because most people will never do the work. Most people will never push themselves to the brink. Most people will never take the risks. Most people will never put themselves out there. Most people will not do what you're willing to do in order to have the life that you have. There is so many things that my high achieving clients had done over the years that most people would never fucking do. And for some people, they're totally okay with that. But chances are, if you're listening to that podcast, you're probably not a person who wants that type of life. Most people who listen to me, most people who follow me, most people who work with me want a life that most people will never get because most people will never do the things that you have to do in order to have that life. It is just that simple. Not good, not bad, just facts. So that is another one. If it was easy, everyone would have it. Another one that I think is quite good is that you don't fix it, you will repeat it. And so what I mean by this is that oftentimes my clients come to me thinking that they're going to come just for business or they're come just for their confidence. And overall, that is probably the last thing that they're going to get. Over a long time ago, I had a client say to me, I came for filet, I walked away with lobster. Not bad, just very different than what I expected. And I thought that was a really great analogy because I do believe that oftentimes people think that they're coming for one thing, but they get something completely different. And something that most of my clients have come to find is that there is a lot of, the word trauma, I think, is sometimes overused or underused, but we all have these things inside of us. And I know for a fact, I had a ton of trauma and my parents were great human beings. But there's a lot of things that happen to us in our life that we have to, work through or reprogram in order to get a different result. And if you don't fix certain things, chances are you are going to pass those along to your kids. You're going to pass those along to your genes. All those traumas are going to follow you until you become the person to say, I am the person who's going to change this. I am the person who's going to make a generational shift. And sometimes that is, mindset. Sometimes that is financial. Sometimes that is, doing something completely different or just saying no or having boundaries or whatever it is. But most oftentimes it comes to, the mindset shifts and the generational changes. And if you don't fix it, you will pass it on. And then your kids will have to fix it. And most parents that I work with are amazing humans who love their kids more than anything else. And once they realize that they're basically fucking up their kids because they were fucked up, they want to change it. And they want to be the person to change it. I chose not to have children, but there are certain things that if I were to have ever had children, I would have stopped certain things from happening because I knew that I did not want to pass on certain beliefs, stories, patterns, and habits, that it was my job to change it. And if I wasn't going to fix it, then no one would fix it for me. The greatest kind of lesson you can learn in life is that it's you. You are I'm not a Taylor Swift fan at all. I think what she's done in business is great, but she has an amazing quote, which is, I am the problem, it's me. And once you realize that you are the only person to actually change your life, You are the actual only person who can change things and decide different things and make the shifts to have something different. It's one of the greatest things that you can ever learn. I learned that it wasn't anyone else's problem but mine. Certain things have happened in my life, some good, some bad, but I was the person who had to change it. And once you realize whatever it is, whether it's money, whether it's mindset, whether it's trauma, whether it's relationship, whatever it is, but once you realize that you want to change something and it's been generationally passed down, you are the only person who can fix it. And that is one of the greatest things that you can ever learn. So if you don't fix it, you will pass it on. So I have said that 1,000 times with clients, and I'm sure I'll say it 1,000 times more. So the last one is, I think it, very on brand for this podcast, and a decision. I can't even read what I wrote. How pathetic is that? Decide it's the right answer. That's what I wrote. That is what I wrote, and it is true. I think I say this with clients on every single call. Decide it's right. Decide it's the right thing for you. How do you make a fast decision? How do you just decide it's the right thing? It is wild what happens to your actions and the amount of momentum that you have once you decide something is right for you. If you sit on the fence, it is wild how much inaction happens. It is wild how back and forth inaction happens. The minute you decide you are right, it is wild how fast things move in your favor. There is really, in my belief, there's really no right or wrong answer. You just have to decide it is the right answer for you and take action upon that. And then every single next action you take gets you closer to what you want. And sometimes you're gonna make a mistake. Sometimes you'll do something different. But the only way to know is to actually decide and actually do something. Inaction is causing you so much grief. You have to make a decision and you have to take action on that decision. And that is unbelievably powerful. And if I could get one thing through to most people is that just have to make a decision. Sitting on the fence is literally stalling you from your greatness. Sitting on the fence and wish-washing is one of the worst things that you can do. You have to make a decision and you have to take action. Those are the things that are going to get you what you want. And so, what I wrote, even though it's horrible penmanship, geez, Louise, I have the worst penmanship ever, but I can barely read it myself. It's decide that you've made the right answer and take action. Action breeds confidence. Action breeds clarity. And sitting on the fence, you're going to get splinters in your ass. I think it was Clinton Anderson on my podcast I did with him that said, sitting on the fence, you get splinters in your ass, and he's 100% correct. Make a clear decision. So those were the quotes that I have used over the years with clients that most people really enjoy. Everything works out for me. There's always a way to yes. Don't step over $1 to pick up a dime. When people are scared, be greedy. And when people are greedy, be scared. When quitting isn't an option, everything else is. If it wasn't hard, everyone would be doing it, so it shouldn't be easy. If you don't fix it, you will not fix it. It's up to you. And decide it is the right answer and take action on that. Let me know if any of these help. Let me know if you guys enjoy them. Let me know which one is your favorite quote. Let me know the one that resonates with you, and I will see you on the next episode.